In 1940, New York City acquired the Interborough Rapid Transit Company, IRT, and the Brooklyn Manhattan Transit Corporation, BMT. They became a single subway network along with the city-owned Independent Subway System, IND. Until as recently as 1966, the three networks remained disjoint enough that they were drawn as three separate divisions on the subway map. However, with the 1967 Christie Street connection from the IND 6th Avenue line to the Manhattan Bridge and Brooklyn BMT lines, the distinction between the two became more obsolete, and they are now collectively known as the B division. The IRT, meanwhile, is known as the A division. It is still separate and will remain so because its tunnels are thinner, so could not accommodate B division trains. The distinction between the two divisions is demonstrated in nomenclature, with the A division lines being designated with numbers and the B division lines with letters, with the notable exception of the 42nd Street Shuttle, which also used to be IRT. Today, we are trying to go to every A division station, all 178 of them, in as little time as possible. While the record for going through the whole system of 472 stations takes upwards of 21 hours, we are hoping we can do this smaller challenge in only 8. Our journey begins at Flushing Main Street on the 7. We decided to start on the 7 because, since it's the only IRT line in Queens, if we didn't start or end on it, we would have to repeat a 30-minute long journey. Repeating as little as possible is crucial in our endeavor. Another note, there are a lot of these blurry images, but we were just trying to take pictures of every station, so not everything turned out beautifully.
Accidents can happen when people stand too close to the platform edge. We want you to be safe, so please stand away from the yellow strip.
We had a lot of flexibility with when we would do the 42nd Street Shuttle, but while we were on the 7, we decided that once we took the 7 to its end and back to Times Square, we would just get the shuttle over with right then and there. Alright, let's go to the other end of the next stop, Times Square. Alright, well, we haven't had a chance to say anything with the video, but we're going to all the number line stations. Should be pretty cool. That's Theo. That's Kyron. See you later. Light shock.
Platform and the train.
We had to go to the shuttle platforms at Times Square and Grand Central because they count as different stations than the 1, 2, 3, or 7 platforms at the former, and then the 4, 5, 6, and 7 platforms at the latter, even though they're part of the same station complex. And you can get to them without swiping your Metro card twice. And then once we did that, we got on a 1 train to take us downtown to its terminus. It's reflective. Oh my god.
South Ferry, last stop.
After retracing to Chambers Street on the 1, we get on the first Brooklyn-bound train that arrives, a 3, and take it all the way to its southeastern terminus at New Lots Avenue. The IRT has a second southeastern terminus in Brooklyn at Flatbush Avenue on the 2. If a 2 train had come before the 3, we could just as well have taken it to its end first. Another thing I haven't mentioned yet is that we are doing this run in August 2020, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, but at a time with low New York City case numbers. This is why the subway trains and stations, as well as buses, are relatively empty. CDL, that's great. We retrace along the 3 back to Franklin Avenue before running over to catch the 2 going back south to its Brooklyn terminus at Flatbush Avenue. Hang on.
This is a Manhattan-bound 2 train. The next stop is Eastern Parkway.
Alright, let's go to the front. We then retrace along the 2 and then transfer to the 4 at Franklin Avenue. The 4 goes express through Brooklyn and then knocks out the rest of the IRT downtown Manhattan stations. Then we transfer to the local 6 and take it north to go to all of the Lexington Avenue line stations. Unfortunately, there is a service change, meaning our 6 will terminate at 138th Street and we have to transfer there. Mind you, we may have had to transfer anyway due to typical peak direction express service in the Bronx, utilizing the 6 train's 3rd track, where local trains end at Parkchester and we would have had to switch to an express to get all the way to Pelham Bay Park. Back on the 6 train, we begin to fall behind our anticipated schedule as the train stops and sits for multiple minutes at some of the stations. However, we also soon come above ground and enjoy views of the Bronx. As we approach the northern end of the 6 line, we ready ourselves for our first bus ride on the BX12 Select Bus. This map depicts our route from Pelham Bay Park Station on the right, along the BX12 bus route depicted in blue, and running south along the gray line to Bronx Park East Station. The bus runs every 4 minutes for most of the day, serving as the primary cross-Bronx connection, so is a reliable choice to get over to another line. It is also helpful in that we can get onto the 2 train just north of where it branches from the 5, and then take it north to its terminus at Wakefield 241st Street. We see the 239th Street yard both from the train and from near the Wakefield 241st Street station on 241st Street. Then we run along the pictured gray line and just make a BX16 bus that takes us the rest of the way along the pictured blue line to Eastchester Dyer Avenue, the northern terminus of the 5 train. We were lucky to have caught the BX16 because it only comes every 10 minutes at its most frequent. This video shows the bus turning onto Dyer Avenue and pulling into the station. It is hard to make out, but I zoom in on the elevated structure where the Eastchester Dyer Avenue station is located, the last stop on the 5 train which we are about to ride south. We take the 5 south along the Dyer Avenue line, relatively unique in being a former commuter rail line and in going back underground for its Pelham Parkway station.
This is East 180th Street.
After passing through train yards and merging back with the 2 line, we finish up the rest of the stations on this elevated line as our train heads south.
This is 3rd Avenue, 149th Street. Transfer to the BX41 Select Bus Service.
Taking the 5 south meant we could check off 138th Street station and transfer to the northbound 4 there. The 4 we got on was somewhat crowded, so it was hard to take photos, though people were still wearing masks and it was nothing like pre-pandemic busyness. We soon reached the northern end of the 4. We get off the 4 train and, intermittently walking and running, head west through the southern end of Van Cortlandt Park along the pictured gray line. This was easily the hardest part of our journey, going 1.5 miles on foot near the end of a tiring day. While we managed to do it in only 25 minutes, we are still running well behind schedule, even as our 1 train speeds south along one of the final segments of our journey. Our planned route is to go to Times Square along the 1 and then transfer to a northbound 3 there. But the next 3 train at Times Square isn't for 25 minutes, and we can easily transfer to one at 96th Street. Our decision to do the 2-3 on the Lenox Avenue line first ends up being a poor one, though, as our train is very slow and we have to retrace along it back to 96th Street. Soon after we get back on the downtown 1 train, our journey finally comes to an end at 50th Street. In the end, we went half an hour slower than what we expected and a full hour slower than planned. We could have left the shuttle for later and did it while waiting for a 3 or while transferring to the other 6. We could have not made the decision to take the 3 first, which would have saved about 10 minutes at the end. But either way, we went to every station in the IRT in under 8.5 hours. I do not know if this particular challenge has been attempted before, but if not, that's the new unofficial world record for all of you to beat.